The strategy was about to succeed when Eric's first love suddenly returned. With just one phone call, Eric abandoned me while I was burning with a high fever. Even at our wedding, Eric did not hesitate to run toward his first love who came to steal the groom. This time, I finally got my wish and changed my mission target. Later, Eric finally came to his senses and begged me to turn back. But all I felt was disgust. Chapter 1. The rain poured down in sheets. I was burning up, half-conscious, and called out, "Eric." No one answered. Just moments ago, after touching my scorching forehead, Eric had said he would take me to the hospital. The moment he finished speaking, his phone rang. He only glanced at it once, and his expression changed drastically. Then he went into the living room and never came back. I struggled to sit up. The man who had just said he would take me to the hospital was now sitting on the sofa, staring blankly at his phone, weak and breathless. I called out again, "Let's hurry. If the rain gets heavier later, it won't be safe." It was as if I had triggered some switch. Eric suddenly stood up and cut me off. "Zoe, there's something very important at the company that needs to be handled." After 7 years of pursuing Eric, I had rarely seen him this flustered. He hurried toward the door. "There's fever medicine at home. Take one first. I'll come back right away to take you." But I no longer had the strength to even get the medicine. The sound of the door closing swallowed my voice. He didn't even look back at me. Just how urgent was it that he would rush off and leave behind his fiancée burning with a high fever? Before I lost consciousness, I seemed to hear the system's mechanical voice. "Julia has returned." Chapter 2. When I woke up, it was already the next day. "You almost burned to death." The system's mechanical voice carried a hint of reproach. Fortunately, I called 120 in time. Warmth rose in my heart, and I softly thanked it. I opened my phone. It was completely clean. Eric hadn't called me even once. He had even forgotten that I had a high fever. I found Julia and opened her social media feed. The latest photo had been posted at 1 in the morning. The location was the airport. Under the dim lighting, a man's wrist wore a red string. His well-defined fingers rested on the steering wheel, even without showing his face. The atmosphere was perfect. My night still rushed to my side as always. That red string, I knew it better than anyone. Half a month ago, I had gone to a temple specifically to pray for Eric and got it for him. He had laughed at my superstition back then, yet he still wore it obediently and never took it off. So the call last night was from Julia. "Are there no taxis at the airport? You just had to make someone else's fiancé pick you up. So eager to be a mistress, have you no shame?" After sending the message to Julia, I tossed the phone aside, ignoring the heaviness in my chest. I let out a sarcastic laugh. Even though I came here with a mission to win him over, I stayed by his side for 7 years. And still, I couldn't beat one phone call from his first love. Chapter 3. Before transmigrating, I was a wandering soul. By accident, I bound myself to a system. As long as I successfully conquered the male lead, I would be able to live in this world as a human. When I arrived, Eric and Julia had just broken up. The original owner of this body was their college classmate. Unlike the introverted and withdrawn original owner, Eric and Julia were the campus's famous golden couple. Both were stunningly good-looking and were prominent figures at the university. Even their relationship made countless people obsess over them. However, after graduation, the two developed differences and eventually parted on bad terms. One went abroad to study, while the other stayed in the country to start a business. Right after breaking up with Julia, Eric was in great pain, and I took advantage of the opportunity. Not only did I join Eric's small company, I also moved to the apartment across from his. At work, we fought side by side. In life, I treated him with gentleness and care. In the 5th year of pursuing Eric, we finally got together. On the night he confessed to me, the company had just secured a new round of funding. After the celebration banquet, we returned to the residential complex together. Under the swaying shadows of the trees, Eric stopped walking. In a gentle tone, he said to me, "Zoe, let's be together." I froze for a moment and blurted out, "Why?" Immediately, I wished I could slap myself twice. Looking at my regretful face, Eric smiled softly. "I think I can't live without you. I've gotten used to having you by my side. So, let's be together." At that time, I felt a little disappointed. When he confessed to Julia, there had been flowers, balloons, and a grand "I like you." After pursuing him for 5 years, I had gradually given him my true heart. Yet I never received a single "I like you" from him. Now it was the 7th year I had stayed by his side. We had already set a wedding date. As long as the wedding went smoothly, my mission to conquer him would be complete. Chapter 4. When I returned from the hospital, there was an extra pair of women's high heels at the entrance. Voices came from inside. "Eric, I should leave. If Zoe comes back later, she'll definitely get angry again." The unfamiliar female voice carried a hint of worry. "Don't worry about her. If she did something wrong, she should apologize." Eric frowned and stopped the woman who had stood up. The woman had big wavy curls, a well-tailored dress, and a strikingly beautiful face. Even though I had only seen her in photos since transmigrating here, I recognized her at a glance. It was Julia. "Zoe, you're back," she called out to me in surprise, sounding as if we were very close. I ignored her and simply leaned against the entryway, staring at Eric as I asked, "What did I do wrong?" Eric walked forward and reached out, trying to hug me, then suddenly lowered his hand, with dissatisfaction in his voice. He questioned me. "Where did you go so early this morning?" Before I could answer, he continued, "Why did you send Julia that kind of message? You made her cry for half the day. There's nothing between Julia and me. Go apologize to her." Looking at his matter-of-fact face, I found it ridiculous. I asked softly, "Do you know I almost burned to death from a high fever yesterday? I wasn't home because I just came back from the hospital." As if finally remembering that he had abandoned me last night, Eric looked at my pale face and a trace of regret flashed in his eyes. "Zoe, listen to my explanation. Zoe, don't misunderstand." Julia cut him off, looking at me openly. "I came back to the country too late. Eric was worried it wouldn't be safe for me to take a taxi, so he came to pick me up. Later the rain got too heavy, and it wasn't safe to drive, so we had to stay at a nearby hotel for the night." Chapter 5. I lowered my gaze and opened social media. The rain was so heavy, yet it didn't stop you from secretly photographing someone else's boyfriend. My sarcastic words stopped midway. The post from last night was already gone. Eric's expression darkened. "Zoe, when did you become so mean?" Julia's smile became forced, but a hint of mockery hid in her eyes as she looked at me. "Since Zoe doesn't like me, I should leave first." As she spoke, she walked toward the door. "Wait." Eric released the hand that was supporting me and moved to chase after Julia. I used all my strength to stop him, my trembling voice carrying an unnoticed plea. "Eric, I'm the one who's going to marry you. Have you forgotten how Julia abandoned you back then?" Their breakup had never been because of differences as they told others. Julia had been blinded by material things and left Eric to go abroad with a rich man. Eric shoved me hard and ran toward the elevator without looking back. "Zoe, you've really disappointed me." My calf slammed into the cabinet at the entrance, and the pain made my vision go dark. By the time I steadied myself again, Eric was already gone. My phone screen lit up. It was Eric calling. "Zoe, how can you be so vicious? Julia got into a car accident. Are you happy now?" His vicious voice pierced my heart like an arrow. I had done nothing. I was the victim, unable to stop the malice rising in my heart. I sneered and said to Eric, "Why didn't she die?" After hanging up, I felt utterly exhausted. I asked the system, "Didn't you say before that I can change the target during the mission?" "Yes." The system answered mechanically and then asked, "Do you want to change the mission target?" Chapter 6. Changing the mission target was a newly introduced policy. When the system told me about it, Eric had just successfully proposed to me. Immersed in joy, I never imagined there would come a day when I would need it. I opened my mouth, about to answer, when a wave of unfamiliar emotions swept over me. After waiting for a long time, the system asked me again. I still couldn't bear to do it. 7 years. Even raising a dog for that long would create feelings. Not to mention that during these 7 years of pursuing Eric, I hadn't been without genuine feelings. I can't remember which dinner it was when a client forced me to drink. As long as I finished the bottles of beer in front of me, he would sign the contract for us. I gritted my teeth and reached out my hand. But Eric stopped me. He forced down a whole bottle of liquor to satisfy the client. As soon as the dinner ended, an ambulance took him to the hospital, or the time my gastritis flared up. And after learning that I couldn't cook, Eric silently remembered it. Without saying a word, he made soup for me for months to nourish my stomach. Or when a new intern secretly said I was shameless, a simp clinging to Eric. After hearing it, he insisted on firing the intern despite their crying and pleading. Every single thing truly placed me in his heart. I didn't believe Eric didn't love me. So when the system first suggested helping me change my target, I refused on the grounds that the wedding was about to take place. Chapter 7. After waiting at home all day, Eric finally came back. He came back to pack his clothes. Julia needs someone to stay with her in the hospital. I won't be coming back these next few days. Eric looked at me with exhaustion in his eyes. Back then, Julia left because she had no choice. Now that she's returned to the country with no one to rely on, no matter what, I have to help her. I closed my eyes, suppressing the frenzy in my chest, and forced a smile. What about me? I'm still running a fever, yet you're going to take care of another woman. Eric finally lost his patience. He stood up and looked down at me from above. Zoe, it's just a fever. Julia is hospitalized. When did you become so cold-blooded and lacking in empathy? The agitation in my heart finally broke free from its restraints. Like a madwoman, I snatched the clothes from his hands and threw them away. Hysterically, I shouted at him, "You're not allowed to go. Why should my boyfriend take care of another woman? When you had no money, she ran far away. Now that you have money, she comes back to enjoy the fruits of your labor. She's nothing but a shameless bitch." Enough! Eric roared at me, his face livid. If you hadn't slandered her, Julia wouldn't have gotten into a car accident out of guilt. Look at yourself right now. How are you any different from a shrew? The heavy slam of the door seemed to carry Eric's fury. It crashed violently into my ears. After a long time, I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and slowly calmed down. The system persuaded me once again. How about changing to someone else? There are still 3 years left. If you cut your losses now, you still have a chance to succeed. Ever since Julia came back, the mission progress had stalled. That was because Eric's heart was wavering. Even the system was getting anxious. I stayed silent for a long time. Just before the system was about to disappear, I suddenly asked a question. Can someone else control my body? Chapter 8. How is that possible? If there were someone else, I would have discovered it long ago. The system immediately denied it. Then why? Ever since Julia appeared, have my emotions felt so wrong? I asked word by word. Whenever it involves Julia, there's always a malice in my heart that I can't suppress. Those messages I sent her, those curses wishing her dead, the normal me would never do such things. And most importantly, the first time the system suggested changing the mission target, I was ready to agree. Yet a strange emotion influenced me and made me give up changing targets. The system was shocked. It left me with a "let me check" before disappearing. Not long after, it reappeared. After hesitating for a long time, it finally told me, "Because you have rarely awakened the attributes of a vicious supporting female character." Eric and Julia belong to a reunion after separation story. When the real female lead appears, your vicious supporting female role automatically activates. So that was it. In novels, the vicious supporting female always hates the female lead and loves the male lead desperately. The system said that since Julia had abandoned Eric before, the probability of successfully conquering Eric was the highest. That was why he had been locked as the target. As long as he proposed marriage to me and the wedding was completed, my mission would be successful. It was just that something went wrong somewhere. Julia returned to the country ahead of time. Even the system didn't dare gamble against the power of a first love. That was why it kept urging me to change targets. So in the future, I'll uncontrollably do more things that match the vicious supporting female role. After receiving the system's confirmation, I fell silent for a long time. In that case, move the wedding date forward as soon as possible. There are countless men in this world. No matter how the plot develops later, I can't tolerate becoming vicious just to fight over a man. However, in terms of mission progress, I don't want to waste these 7 years. Advancing the wedding is the best choice. After getting married, we can always divorce later. I sent Eric a message expressing remorse, and suggested going to the hospital to apologize to Julia. After a long time, Eric finally sent the hospital address. When I arrived at the hospital, Eric wasn't there. Julia leaned halfway against the hospital bed, a smug smile hidden in her expression. I only got a small scrape, but Eric was too worried and insisted I stay in the hospital for observation. Zoe, sorry about this. I'll be borrowing Eric for a few days. He said he'd take care of me for a while, and I couldn't refuse. After placing all the flowers I brought into the vase, I smiled calmly. It's fine. I should thank you. If you hadn't trained him so well, I wouldn't have met such a good man. I'll lend him to you for a few days as payment. Not wanting to be vicious doesn't mean I'm easy to bully. Julia choked on her words, unwilling to give up, and couldn't help provoking me. I'll tell you the truth. I came back this time for Eric. Eric loves me. If you know what's good for you, you'll let him go yourself. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. She looked down at me arrogantly, not taking me seriously at all. I laughed in anger. Don't you know Eric and I have already set a wedding date? Or are you really that eager to be a mistress? Julia's face turned pale, yet she stubbornly looked at me innocently. True love is not a crime. Chapter 9. True love is not a crime. How disgusting. My expression turned completely cold, and I turned to leave. But at the door, I ran into Eric returning with food. Zoe. He grabbed my arm, looking somewhat tired. Why aren't you going inside? I suppressed the turmoil in my chest and let him lead me back in. Then I watched coldly as my boyfriend busied himself taking care of his ex-girlfriend. After everything was done, I found an excuse and asked Eric to walk me out. Before leaving, Julia stood pale-faced, her eyes brimming with tears that seemed ready to fall. It immediately made Eric declare, Julia, don't worry, I won't abandon you, completely ignoring the fact that I, his official girlfriend, was still right there. When we reached a quiet corner of the hospital, Eric hugged me apologetically. Zoe, I know these days have been hard on you, but Julia had her reasons for leaving back then. I can't just ignore her. Back then, the real reason Julia broke up with Eric was that her family went bankrupt. To save the company, her father sold her to another man. That man kept a tight watch on her, and only recently did she get the chance to escape back to the country. But just because she suffered, does that mean she has to come and steal my boyfriend? Listening to Eric's grand-sounding words, I found it laughable. Men, always eating from the bowl while eyeing the pot. I suppressed all my thoughts and looked up at Eric with unease. Eric, can we move our wedding forward? I know you only want to help her because she's having a hard time, but I'm really afraid she'll take you away from me. At the emotional peak, I even forced out 2 tears. Eric tenderly wiped the tears from my face. He hesitated for a moment and patted my head. All right, we'll move the wedding forward. Chapter 10. After leaving the hospital, Julia occasionally sent Eric photos of how attentively he was taking care of her to provoke me. I saved them all and ignored them. I only casually advised Eric that it would be better not to let Julia know the date of our wedding, so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable and refuse to accept Eric's care. This time, Eric was very obedient. The wedding was finally moved forward as I wished. Looking at the last bit of mission progress that had been stuck for so long, I finally felt relieved. The system was also very happy. As long as today's wedding is completed, you'll succeed. My performance rating will also reach the target. The first half of the wedding went smoothly. However, when it came time to exchange rings, someone shouted for it to stop. Julia somehow found out the news. She wore a white gauze dress, her face pale, not as dazzling as usual, but like a delicate lotus in the rain, evoking sympathy. Julia's eyes were full of emotion as she ignored the surrounding gazes and stared at Eric. Eric, you once said you would be my knight for the rest of your life. No matter what happened to me, you would rush to my side and solve my troubles. Now I want to ask my knight, will you come with me? The venue erupted in an uproar. Many of the guests were Eric's college classmates. They naturally recognized Julia. The whispers in the audience grew louder and louder. They were such a perfect couple back then. Exactly. Julia was so proud. Yet she's willing to put down her dignity to stop the wedding for Eric. If you ask me, Eric doesn't know how to cherish her. Julia truly still loves him. All this nonsense reached both Eric and me. Maintaining a smile, I softly said to the somewhat embarrassed Eric, I believe you'll handle this well. He smiled gratefully at me, then frowned and said to Julia, "That's all in the past, but I don't have many years left." Tears streamed down Julia's face. "Eric, I have cancer. I'm dying. I just want you to spend some more time with me." As soon as she finished speaking, Julia fainted. Eric's expression changed drastically, and without thinking, he rushed toward her. I grabbed the corner of his suit and stumbled a few steps. "Eric, what are you doing? Today is our wedding." Eric's eyes were red. Julia fainted. "There are so many people around her. We can call an ambulance." "Zoe, how can you be so heartless? She's dying. She only wants me to stay with her for a while. Even such a simple wish, you have to argue about it? Does this wedding have to be today? I always thought you were kind." I was wrong. The surroundings were noisy, but I stared coldly at the man before me. My own emotions finally suppressed the vicious supporting female's influence. I sneered, then tore off my veil and threw it hard onto the ground. "This wedding, marry whoever the hell you want. I'm not going through with it." The system appeared right on cue. Its voice was as mechanical as ever, yet I could hear it gritting its teeth. "Ugh, scumbag. Host, would you like to change the mission target?" This time, I finally agreed as I had always wished. Chapter 11. The new mission target surprised me. Leo, Eric's sworn enemy and biggest competitor. The system said that, based on its current analysis, he was the easiest target for me to conquer. I was only half convinced. Back then, Eric had also been calculated as the easiest to conquer. Yet he turned against me at the very end. The system, exasperated, finally stopped being stingy and gave me a little more information. "That guy has liked you for a long time. He's just been holding it back. Have you forgotten what happened 2 years ago?" 2 years ago, I attended a business dinner on Eric's behalf. At that time, we had just gotten together and hadn't made it public yet. The old men at the table thought I was nothing more than a manager. After a few rounds of drinks, they started getting handsy. At first, I endured it, but one bald man went too far. His hand even slid onto my thigh. Just as I picked up my bag, ready to smash it into his face, Leo exploded. He smashed a wine bottle over the bald man's head. "I'm already in a bad mood today, and you're blowing cigarette ash onto me? You've got a death wish." The bald man was bleeding profusely yet kept begging for mercy. He was afraid of Leo's background. Leo's family had both power and money. More than once, Eric had complained to me about Leo. He said Leo claimed to be an entrepreneur, but in the end, he only relied on his family's power. Otherwise, our company wouldn't have been suppressed by him time and time again. Eric had built everything from scratch and despised rich second-generation heirs who relied on their families. At that time, I only thought Leo truly was as untouchable as the rumors said. I never knew when he had started having feelings for me, but it didn't matter anymore. I already had a plan to get close to him. Chapter 12. After the wedding day, I moved out of Eric's house. I heard that Julia was hospitalized that very day, and Eric stayed by her side without leaving. He didn't even know I had moved out, which suited me perfectly. I mailed my printed resignation letter directly to the company. Then I contacted Leo. Eric couldn't stand Leo relying on his powerful background, and Leo equally couldn't stand Eric's pretentious pride. "Leo, I have a deal. I wonder if you're interested." Leo replied very quickly. We arranged to meet at a bar. It was newly opened by Leo's friend. When I arrived, Leo was surrounded by a group of people. At a glance, he was the most eye-catching one. Delicate features, an unruly smile always hanging on his lips, perfectly fitting the image of a playboy. Yet deep down, he wasn't really like that. I walked over and greeted him coolly. The people around him began to tease. As expected of Leo, "Girls are chasing you all the way here." Leo glared at them and led me into a quiet private room. At first, he still kept up an aloof attitude. Leaning back on the sofa, Leo spoke lazily. "Tell me, what do you want from me? You should be interested in the project you've been competing with Eric for recently. We had prepared that project for a long time and were confident we could defeat Leo. If we won it, the company would enter a new stage of development. As someone who had participated in the entire preparation process, I naturally knew how to sabotage their plan. As long as you trust me, Leo, if we work together, we can definitely catch Eric off guard." Leo shifted his posture, resting his chin on his hands and looking at me with those beautiful peach blossom eyes. How do I know this isn't a trap you two lovers set up together for me? I smiled calmly and, without hesitation, tore open my own wound for him to see. You must have heard about Eric and me canceling our wedding, right? His ex-girlfriend crashed the wedding, and he left me without hesitation. He trampled my dignity. Of course, I want revenge, but you've stayed by his side for 7 years. Leo's probing gaze fell on me. I laughed self-mockingly. You know it's been 7 years. Yet I still can't compare to his first love. Perhaps seeing my downcast expression, Leo blurted out words of comfort. How could that be? How could that woman compare to you? I looked at him in surprise. He touched his nose, realizing he had misspoken, and hurriedly added, I just can't stand that guy Eric. He really went too far. I smiled and didn't pursue the topic. It seemed the system hadn't lied to me. What people say subconsciously reveals what they truly think. I reached out my hand to Leo. In that case, happy cooperation. Leo's well-defined hand clasped mine. The warmth of his palm warmed my hand as well. Happy cooperation. Miss Zoe. There was a smile in Leo's eyes as he softly bit out my name. Chapter 13. 1 week later. I attended the bidding meeting as the project manager of Leo's company. Eric rushed in only in the last few minutes before the meeting began. When he saw me standing beside Leo, he looked stunned. Zoe, why are you standing over there? Come here quickly. I glanced at the time and said to Leo, let's go in. I didn't even spare Eric a glance. The bidding meeting went very smoothly. As I expected, we successfully secured the project. Throughout the process, Eric was distracted, staring at me blankly several times, because originally, I was supposed to attend this bidding meeting on his behalf. Now, I was standing on the opposite side. When the final result was announced, Eric's expression changed repeatedly. The moment we stepped out of the building, Eric stopped me. Zoe, how could you do this? He looked at me angrily, rage swirling in his eyes. You know how much effort we put into this project. I raised an eyebrow. So? What does that have to do with me? A revenge opportunity delivered to my door, why not use it? Seeing my indifferent attitude, Eric's expression turned cold. I know you're still angry about what happened at the wedding. I promise I'll give you an even grander wedding. But that day was an accident. It was a matter of life and death. Can't you try to understand? For a moment of anger, do you realize how much loss you've caused the company? I curled my lips and slowly said a few words. Understand my ass. Your losses have nothing to do with me. Ever since I changed my mission target, I was no longer controlled by the vicious supporting female attribute. Looking at Eric now only made me feel disgust. Under Eric's stunned gaze, I pushed him aside and walked toward Leo, who was watching the show nearby. He gave me a thumbs up. Nice one, Zoe. When dealing with a man who's shameless and unaware of it, you've got to scold him hard. That hit right where it mattered. Too bad my trash-talking skills still needed work. Behind me, Eric was still unwilling to give up. He threatened, if you insist on sticking with Leo, then we're really over. Without turning back, I raised my middle finger behind me. Chapter 14. To celebrate winning the project, Leo treated the whole company to a night out. The after-party was set at his friend's bar. The atmosphere was lively. Leo raised his glass toward me, but the music was too loud to hear what he said. I unconsciously leaned closer to him. I asked near his ear, what did you just say? Maybe the bar was too hot, or Leo's ears were too sensitive. I had only leaned in a little, yet his entire ear turned crimson. Even so, he didn't pull away. Instead, he followed suit and spoke into my ear. I said, congratulations on getting rid of that scumbag. The fresh scent of bergamot from his body filled my nose. Only then did I realize how close we were. So close that when Leo turned his head, his lips accidentally brushed against my cheek. That soft touch made both of us freeze. The surroundings were noisy, yet I could hear Leo's heart pounding wildly. The ambiguity felt almost tangible, enveloping our little corner. Just as Leo's lips were about to press closer, I abruptly stood up. I'm going to the restroom, I said, leaving him stunned in place. Cold water ran over my skin, and the burning in my veins gradually cooled. I didn't expect Leo, the playboy young master, to be so innocent. He deliberately ruined his own reputation just to fight against his family. The system continued, checking the mission progress. The progress bar was moving quickly, it was already halfway full. As expected. Having feelings makes this much faster than when you were pursuing that scumbag Eric. The system informed me happily. I applied lipstick and curved my lips into a smile. 3 years would be enough. Chapter 15. After losing the project competition, Eric's company suffered a moderate setback. Probably afraid that I would go back to Eric, Julia used many tricks to keep him at the hospital with her. Meanwhile, I took the opportunity to spread the story through various channels, how I had devoted 7 years to Eric's company only to be kicked out overnight to the core staff. With a mix of sympathy and the lure of better benefits, I successfully poached many of Eric's key employees. By the time Eric realized, it was already too late. The backbone staff kept resigning, and the company was left understaffed. Leo and I continued snatching several major projects one after another. It dealt Eric a heavy blow, and the company's performance began to decline. Eric ran around anxiously like a headless fly, because in his last round of financing, he had signed a performance agreement with investors. He even came to me, trying to soften his stance. That night, I had just finished watching a movie with Leo. Leo went to get the car, and I waited by the roadside. A familiar yet unfamiliar SUV stopped beside me. Eric got out and softly called my name. He didn't look well, his expression exhausted, as if he hadn't slept in days. Zoe, do we really have to fight to the death like this? Without you by my side, I truly regret it. Come back to me. I stepped back in disgust and mocked him. How shameless are you to think I'd forgive you? Everything that had happened had already torn our relationship apart. I didn't know how Eric could still say such things. I'm sorry. His eyes were full of regret. I thought you were just angry for a while. I planned to give you some space and coax you when you calmed down. Zoe, the one I love is you. As for Julia, I only felt sorry for her and wanted to help. As if making up his mind, Eric promised firmly, as long as you're willing to come back, I swear I'll never see Julia again. Shut up. I couldn't stand it and cut him off. I'm not interested in your mess. We have absolutely no relationship anymore. Stop bothering me. Eric's face turned pale instantly. His eyes reddened and his lips trembled. You said you would stay by my side forever. That was when I loved you. Now I don't. To me, you're just trash. I stared at him in disbelief. You trampled my sincerity and still expect me to come back and clean up your mess? Go see a psychiatrist. The roar of a red sports car approached loudly. Let's go, Zoe. I gave Eric one last look. Eric, you should be grateful that over these years you've obeyed the law and paid your taxes on time. Otherwise, my revenge would have been much harsher. Chapter 16. I didn't expect to see Julia again. She took the initiative to ask me out, saying she wanted to talk. Looking at her still dazzling face, I had no idea what there was left to discuss. Zoe, you're truly ruthless. The moment we sat down, Julia attacked me. Eric just doesn't love you. Yet you teamed up with outsiders to deal with him. You've forced him to run around desperately trying to save his company. How are you any different from the vicious supporting female in novels who destroys everything when she can't have it? I know I can't help Eric with much. I can only come to beg you to show mercy and let us go. Her voice was soft and fragile, but loud enough. It drew quite a few curious glances from the people around us. I smiled faintly and quietly watched her performance. Occasionally, I cooperated with a line or two. Yes, I'm that vicious. Yes, if I can't have it, I'll destroy it. Yes, I just want to watch you suffer. Allowing her show to continue, seeing that she had extracted from me plenty of proof that I was deliberately targeting Eric, Julia finally dropped the act. She stared at me coldly. Zoe, you won't be jumping around for much longer. A few days later, I understood what she meant. She wanted to use online public opinion to pressure me. Julia fabricated a story about the entanglement between the three of us, then edited in some of my so-called confessions about wanting to destroy them. She hired several marketing accounts to post it. Overnight, this true story went viral. Since my personal information was barely censored, I was quickly exposed. In the story, the female lead Julia and the male lead Eric were a pair of star-crossed lovers torn apart. I was the mistress who schemed my way into the relationship while the female lead was away. The male lead still loved the female lead, but I, the vicious mistress, kept framing and suppressing them. As a result, they fell into hardship, with audio recordings as evidence and their love story established first. I was swiftly subjected to online harassment as the evil mistress. Julia's maneuver gave me a new idea. Chapter 17. Leo found out about the online harassment very quickly. He immediately cursed those people while making calls to have the trending topic removed. But I stopped him, confused. He reached out and touched my forehead. "You're not running a fever, Zoe. Did all that hate online make you stupid?" I glared at him and pulled his hand away. "Just don't interfere for now. I can handle this myself. But I don't want you to suffer even a little." Leo held my hand tightly, his eyes serious. My heart warmed, and my tone softened. "I know, trust me, if I can't handle it, I'll turn to you, my big backer." When the situation online fermented to its peak, I finally stepped forward. Julia thought that with the audio recording as evidence, she could grab hold of my weakness and smear me. Coincidentally, I had leverage too, and mine was even more detailed. The internet has always been a double-edged sword. If Julia could wield it, so could I. The system, usually stingy when it came to giving me plot advantages, finally granted me a cheat. It had a built-in recording function. At the hospital, and at the wedding, when I sensed something was wrong, I immediately had the system activate the recording feature, combined with the provocative messages Julia had sent me earlier. It was enough to make both her and Eric unable to recover. I registered a secondary account and, from my own perspective, retold the entire story of the three of us according to the timeline. At the end, I not only posted Julia's pretentious coquette messages but also attached the videos. Riding on the popularity Julia had already stirred up, my post exploded completely. Messages and audio recordings can be fabricated. Videos cannot. Anyone with basic morals could see how disgusting this so-called tragic couple truly was. Especially the hospital video, Julia's line, "True love is not a crime," triggered waves of criticism. It even became a meme, pushing the incident beyond its original circle. Although the faces in the video were roughly censored, anyone familiar with them could recognize them. Julia and Eric's personal information was soon exposed as well. Chapter 18. Eric's company suffered the greatest impact. Many netizens flooded the company's official account with insults. The online uproar was so intense that business partners began to avoid them. After all, Eric's company wasn't the only one in the industry. The company's performance had already been declining day by day. Now it was even worse. Eric called me, begging me to take down the post. I blocked him directly when I was being cyberbullied. I didn't see him stand up and say a single word for me. People are like that, they don't feel pain until it hits them personally. As the saying goes, strike when your enemy is down. With such a good opportunity, it would be a waste not to make full use of the path Julia had paved for me. In just 2 months, we swallowed up more than half of Eric's company's business. On our side, it was all celebration, overtime bonuses, and salary raises. On Eric's side, morale was shaken, and even he himself ran into trouble. Leo was the one who told me this. Even the system didn't know. At that moment, the system, just like me, pricked up its ears to listen to the gossip. In the end, it all traced back to Julia. The man her father had sold her to was actually a wealthy tycoon from the Middle East. Julia hadn't known the truth when she left the country. Only after setting foot in the Middle East did she realize she had been deceived by her father. The tycoon not only had multiple wives, but also liked domestic violence. Julia endured it for a long time while secretly planning her escape. The tycoon searched for her for a long time. Just as he was about to give up, he happened to see the trending news back home. They had been husband and wife for so long that he recognized her immediately. He then rushed back to the country with his men to capture her. Julia didn't dare tell Eric the truth. She only said that the tycoon was coming to seize her. On the way to the police station with Eric, the tycoon chased after them. It turned into a real-life Fast and Furious. In the end, both sides crashed into a passing truck. All of them ended up in the hospital. They were lucky to survive. But losing arms or legs was inevitable. Eric was paralyzed in both legs and would have to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Julia lost one arm. Only then did Eric learn that Julia never had cancer at all. It had all been a lie to deceive him. If he had done even a little investigation, he wouldn't have been fooled. But to him, his first love was flawless, and so he missed the chance to learn the truth. Chapter 19. Another spring arrived. Eric's company could no longer hold on and officially declared bankruptcy. After failing the performance agreement, Eric was left with heavy debts. He could only sell the real estate he had accumulated over the years to repay them. As for Julia, who once said she would stay by his side forever, after the company went bankrupt, she returned to the wealthy tycoon. At least by his side, she could still live a life of luxury. During this time, Eric tried to contact me more than once, but I blocked, deleted, and ignored him every time. Not kicking him while he was down was already my greatest mercy. That summer, I finally agreed to Leo's proposal. The wedding was grand. Leo grinned widely, his eyes full of love. He raised the ring and slipped it onto my finger. The system's cheerful electronic voice sounded in my ear. Congratulations, host. Mission complete.